What's up, guys? Don't forget to smash that like button, drop a comment, hype up the video, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe and join the family. Guys, if you want to support the channel and get something cool, check the first link in the description. Use my code HugoHenriqueMore to get 10% off on anime lamps. This world, thanks to the existence of magic, gives rise to countless demonic caves and hordes of demons. In the same way, magic awakens people with special gifts, the so-called awakened. Among them is the SSS-class demon king, Belphegor, who commands the 5 elements, and also the strongest squad in the world, known as the Divine Corps. At the head of this group is Bai Yi, who has been leading it for 10 years. Several demons appear and rush forward to attack. The team's mission is to cleanse the demonic caves in the name of the supreme authority, the one called God. Yi takes the front line and charges at the monsters, declaring that the operation has begun. That is the 100th high-level cave they have faced. Right behind him is Ling Yue, the L-class lightning assassin of the Divine Corps. Without hesitation, she runs beside the captain. This mission was assigned to them as an L-class exclusion operation. The team's mage also steps in. He is Han Xiaoling, an L-class cloud mage. The L-class represents the highest level of existing difficulty. They advance convinced that once the task is done, they will be able to enjoy short vacations. Lucian, the team's supporter, casts his spells. He is the L-class star conductor. He increases gravitational pull by 200% and speed by 100%, strengthening the group. He also boosts gravity by 100% on the captain, making his attacks devastating. The pressure and thunder of the blows echo everywhere. Yi releases even more energy, devastating everything around him. Besides being the commander of the Divine Corps, he is also an L-class nuclear holy warrior. With ease, the group exterminates the enemies and confirms that the Demon King Belphegor was successfully defeated. Xiaoling shows annoyance, thinking that once again the battle ended far too quickly and without fun. Ling Yue tries to cheer him up, promising that later they would find demonic caves for him to vent his frustration. Lucian, of high rank, who had demanded the deployment of the whole team, questions the leader if he doesn't find it strange that everything ended so easily. Yi wipes his sword and comments that the information they had received said it was a special demon king, one with mastery over the 5 elements and a hidden ability. Ling Yue hugs the captain and with a teasing smile says that after this they can finally take vacations and asks if he will invite them for a banquet. She moves closer and suggests that instead of the banquet it could just be the 2 of them. Embarrassed, Yi scolds her and insists that everyone will attend the banquet, as always, in the holy capital. The assassin feels frustrated, saying her ambush has failed again. Xiaoling also gets annoyed, accusing the captain of not understanding anything about women. Yi notices something odd and looks back, asking if a certain man followed them. The supporter answers that he had said he would handle the cleanup and didn't even fight the Demon King. Ling Yue remarks that he is always the slowest, and Xiaoling agrees, saying his talent is being lazy. Suddenly, that man approaches and announces, "Operation Purge L." He raises his finger, laughs, and says, "Everything begins now." He then delivers a fatal blow to Xiaoling, leaving everyone in shock. He declares that this is the true mission God entrusted to him. Yi, overwhelmed with fury, tries to react but realizes he cannot move his body. The traitor reveals that all the captain's breakfasts in the past month were filled with paralytic powder. Roots sprout from the ground. It is the divine ability flower of forbidden vines. He states that to eliminate the strongest, absolute preparation was needed. Yi, confused, asks what is wrong with him and if he has gone insane. Ling Yue screams, demanding to know what he is doing. The roots wrap around each member of the team, leaving them unconscious and disarmed. The man declares that this is nothing more than God's decree. Operation Purge Class L means eliminating Yi. He continues the attack, binding Lucian and Ling Yue with crushing roots before the captain's eyes. Then 2 roots pierce their bodies, killing them instantly. Ling Yue and Lucian fall lifeless, each with a hole in their body. Yi, filled with hatred and indignation, roars, not understanding why they are being eliminated, since the Divine Corps had never crossed any boundaries. What god and with what right did this to his team? The man who ambushed them stands up and tells the young captain that he is still naive. With quick movements, he disappears and reappears, striking the captain and saying that when God kills someone, no reason is needed. With that blow, the entire Divine Corps team is wiped out. Before his death, Yi asks if that means he was never truly a friend of the team, as they had spent 10 years together, practically as a family. The man laughs, questioning what he means by friend and family, and stresses that the captain still doesn't understand why he was chosen to do this. He says that since the first encounter, God had been moving those pieces, and the Divine Corps had never been more than pawns. To earn the captain's trust, who was the strongest there, He had to play that role for so long that it made him sick. The traitor gathers energy in his finger and fires another attack at the captain, bringing the operation to an end. May 22, 2125. All members confirmed dead. The L-class exclusion operation was concluded. With blood on his hands, the traitor walks away from the bodies of his former comrades, saying he will finally get his vacation. Yi, captain, and responsible for all those lives, cannot accept it. Even after receiving 2 fatal blows, his body still trembles. Suddenly, he hears a voice asking if he wants to make a deal. Yi opens his eyes and realizes he is in a dark place, chained. He looks around, asks where he is, gets up and starts walking, until a being appears before him and greets him. Yi is startled and asks if that being is Demon King Belphegor and how he is still alive. The demon tells him to stop being naive because an SS-class Demon King does not die easily. Then he releases an overwhelming power and explains that the entire space is his soul's domain and that the entire Naye Kingdom is his life force. He emphasizes that they are talking too much and need to go straight to the point, highlighting that he senses in the captain a hatred that matches his own. For that reason, he proposes a transaction. His hidden ability, called Regression to Life, can send him back to the distant past, giving him the chance to change everything. With a touch on the captain's shoulder, he offers this opportunity. The Demon King smiles and asks if he is interested. Yi remembers each of his companions and how happy they were, but the scene of betrayal and death before his eyes overwhelms his mind. Consumed by rage and the desire for revenge, he breaks the chains and swears he will kill the traitor with his own hands and that the gods will also pay with their lives. The Demon King smiles with satisfaction, saying that was the expected answer, and for that he will grant him another gift. He creates a heart in his hand and asks him to consider it a welcome gift. Yi asks what the price is, but the demon only smiles, and darkness envelops him again. A distant voice begins to call him, asking him to wake up. Slowly, he opens his eyes and sees a woman in front of him, shouting for him to get up. He's now in 2105, in the protectorate state of the Sacred Nation J in the high school division of the Awakened Academy. Surprised, he realizes he has truly gone back. He looks at his own hands and wonders if he is still before his awakening. The woman insists, complaining that sleeping in regular classes is bad enough, but dozing off before the ceremony is too much. She orders him to go to the back of the room. Yi is stunned to recognize Professor Huang and confirms he has returned to his school days. He stands up, walks to the back, and thinks that this can only be Belphegor's hidden ability, as unbelievable as it seems. He looks around, surprised to see classmates he hadn't seen in more than 20 years. The teacher returns to the front, bangs the desk, and orders everyone to focus, as they will continue the lesson. She explains that there are 5 elemental powers in that world: lightning, flower, cloud, nuclear, and star. Each person can contain only one of these elements. Snapping her fingers, a spell manifests before her, and the teacher reveals she possesses the cloud element, considered the rarest. Then she explains that depending on how the element connects to the body, it is classified into 3 categories: combat, support, and special. The combination of the 5 elements with these different roles generates countless professions. The strongest guild team in the school is formed by a star mage, a cloud warrior, a nuclear bard, and a lightning assassin. She stresses that she knows some of them have already surpassed ordinary people by awakening among millions, receiving praise since childhood at the peak of their abilities. However, she warns that this day is the most important of all, because there are few known awakened professions. Professions are divided from the lowest to the highest level: dust, ember, abyss, and celestial, and each student there has only one chance to awaken. Therefore, that afternoon, when it happens, the future and status of each one in that world will be decided. When the class ends, the protagonist walks through the school, reflecting that everything feels so nostalgic, since it was there that he awakened for the first time. Suddenly, a boy falls beside him, and he recognizes him as Four Eyes. He soon realizes that other students are bullying him, calling him useless trash for relying on artificial awakening. One of the boys steps on Four Eyes' hand and mocks him, asking how he dares block his path and implying that he thinks he's better than everyone just because he's about to awaken. The same boy releases a red aura, declaring that before a red-level awakening like his, everyone else is and will always be insects. This is Hong Qiangsheng, a star assassin of unknown background. The protagonist watches and thinks that he has always been the school bully, for even in his past life, Qiangsheng was constantly picking fights. Moreover, he seems to have some hyper-masculine genes, since he is always causing trouble. At that moment, the teacher intervenes, ordering Qiangsheng to stop immediately, as this is a school, not a scene of violence. The bully retorts that it was the other boy who started the mess. Then he steps closer to the teacher and remarks that it isn't fair to reward her students with something as simple as bubble tea. He leans closer, whispering in her ear, asking if she plans on playing the heroine, hinting that if she weren't so pretty, she would have been fired long ago. Huang ignores him and goes to the fallen boy, asking if he is all right. Qiangsheng just laughs, calls his friends, and decides to leave, saying that for this time, he will respect the teacher. However, as he turns around, he notices the protagonist standing right in front of him. He taps Yi on the shoulder, asks what he's looking at, and shoves him, ordering him to get out of the way, for soon they would return to mock the weak. Yi observes the student who suffered the bullying, who apologizes to the teacher, claiming it was his fault. But she tries to comfort him, assuring him it was not his fault. The protagonist reflects that teacher Huang always kept a rigid posture on the outside, but was generous on the inside, since in his past life, she always helped him after awakening. Suddenly, a group of people approaches and tells the teacher that it is time for her class to go to the awakening chamber. She stands up and asks everyone to line up, reminding them that during the process, it is essential to remain calm to avoid injury. As he walks toward the evaluation, the protagonist thinks that in this world, there are two methods of awakening. The first is natural, like Changsheng's, which usually occurs in people with innate talent and strong physical constitution, triggered in moments of extreme emotional intensity. The second takes place in the awakening chamber, the result of the accumulated wisdom of countless scientists. Inside it, emotions and adrenaline are intensely stimulated, forcing the awakening. However, since everyone can only awaken once and randomly, one of the students comes out of the room laughing loudly, saying he finally obtained a blue-level profession. The teacher smiles and responds that this is great, asking him to rest since he must be exhausted. Soon after, Huang calls Yi, saying it is his turn. As he walks inside, Yi thinks that this is why awakening is considered the only reset button of life. At the door, the teacher warns him that he must concentrate as much as possible, as she does not want to see the same laziness he shows in class. She asks if he understood. Yi passes by her and replies that he did. In his thoughts, he remembers that in his last life he awakened as a nuclear warrior, a dust-level profession, and for that reason was bullied. Only much later, upon reaching S rank, did he manage to awaken the rarest type. The test begins, and he thinks he will probably get the nuclear element again, like last time, but he does not know what his profession will be now. The process goes on normally until suddenly an alarm blares, startling Yi. A system screen appears, indicating an error in the awakening process. Then the message changes, stating that 5 elements have been detected. Yi feels pain in his chest, places his hand over it, and wonders what is happening, feeling intense heat in his body. The message changes again, saying the awakening system is rebooting. Various screens appear in sequence, and one of them announces, since you possess 5 elemental types in your body, you may choose any class from any of these elements as your initial class. Once a certain element accumulates enough power, you may choose to obtain a new random class for that element or use your original class. Yi is confused and questions what elemental accumulation means. Even without fully understanding, he deduces that not only can he choose his current element and class, but he will also be able to obtain new classes in the future. He realizes he can reach from dust to celestial, including even special classes. The system confirms but explains that he can only choose his initial class. The next ones will be assigned randomly. Yi recalls that the Demon King promised to give him a push, and understands that this power is exactly the gift he received, the ability of infinite awakening. The system informs him that after he selects the initial class, all elemental bars will be removed, so his choice must be made with caution. Outside, the other students start worrying, asking why it is taking so long. Suddenly, Yi comes out of the room. Huang runs up to him, excited, and asks which class he awakened into. Yi lowers his head and apologizes, saying he will have to disappoint her because he awakened as a nuclear warrior of the worst quality, green. The teacher shows slight disappointment but quickly smiles again and tries to encourage him, saying that this is not so bad, since even among the green quality there are people who achieve extraordinary feats. She stresses that he must not give up, because the world will not abandon him. Yi replies that he does not need to be comforted like this, but Huang insists, saying she already knows how badly he must be feeling. She starts gently pushing him, patting his shoulder to cheer him up, and recommends he rest, since the process must have taken a lot from him. At that moment, Yi hears a sarcastic laugh. Qiangsheng, the bully, repeats the teacher's words exactly and continues mocking, saying he remembers how capable she was, but now she can only spout useless positivity. He claims she knows very well that reality does not work that way. According to him, someone of dust quality is destined to remain at the bottom. He steps up to Yi and asserts that the world works like this. The gods choose only the strong, while the weak exist only to be humiliated. Upon hearing the word gods, Yi begins to feel a deep rage. The teacher intervenes, demanding to know what Qiangsheng is doing there again. The boy answers arrogantly, saying that she already knows how it works. Those of dust quality can only sit in the last row to attend class from then on. She asks why, and he replies that this is society, without power, without history, without future, always relegated to the back row, abandoned by justice. For the strong receive resources, evolve, and become stronger, while from the moment a dust awakens, his fate is sealed. He can only become a low-level worker among the awakened. The bully asks if Yi truly believes that a dust class could ever be called a genius, emphasizing that changing life through hard work is impossible. He questions whether the protagonist really believes that lie. He keeps sneering, saying it is just like birth. The future is decided there. He claims that at that academy, awakening is just a reflection of that principle, and even asks the teacher if she doesn't agree, since being of the bright class, she is nothing more than a salaried worker and useless at the school. Then he turns to Yi and keeps mocking, saying that those of the lowest levels should just go home early instead of wasting government resources. Yi, unable to listen any longer, grabs the bully's cup and throws the entire drink into his face. Drenched, Qiangsheng furiously asks what Yi thinks he is doing. He answers simply that he doesn't like hearing irritating voices like his. Losing control, the bully lunges forward. The teacher tries to intervene but cannot get there in time. Qiangsheng activates the power star Thornstrixa, an assassin star, whose basic attack increases offensive power. He warns Yi to just wait for death, but Yi begins to focus energy in his hand, forming a sword and blocks the attack with ease, stunning the bully. With a simple motion, he throws Qiangsheng back in front of everyone. Fallen on the ground and injured, Qiangsheng can barely get up and glares at Yi, who remains standing holding the sword. All the students are shocked, asking how he managed to do that. Yi rests the sword on his shoulder and declares that he chose that class. The nuclear warrior comes with a basic light sword plus 20 evasion, and with a smile he says he is simply already used to it. Qiangsheng, laughing even while hurt, declares that Yi just got lucky, reminding him that he himself is a rare abyss-level rank, far above a dust rank like Yi. Huang, observing the scene, thinks it cannot have been mere luck. She recognizes that Yi used an advanced ability exclusive to warriors called Parry, which blocks damage at the exact instant it is received, and, if timed with precision below 1 second, can reflect all physical damage back to the opponent. She reflects that this technique requires a reaction time of 0.09 seconds, and that not even her own teacher mastered it after 10 years of intense practice. And yet Yi, a novice at the lowest level, managed to execute it perfectly on his very first day without any experience. The teacher wonders how this is possible. The bully, unwilling to accept defeat, draws his weapon and asks if Yi is ready to die. The Star Assassin class comes with a bayonet granting plus 30 speed. Qiangsheng shouts that he will make Yi crawl before everyone, calling him trash. Yi thinks that he chose the seemingly weakest class for his own reasons, because he believes that judging someone's future from birth is a mistake that was only acknowledged years later. He also has the skill Block, which, when using the weapon to defend, can nullify more than 50% of damage, depending on the timing of the impact. The two prepare to fight again while their classmates watch, worried about the violation of school rules, since using awakened powers in private fights is strictly forbidden. Moreover, there are many students watching. They comment that Qiangsheng's father is a high-ranking official and his uncle is the principal, while Yi comes from a poor family without influence. One of the students, apprehensive, says Yi could even die, and if not, he will be expelled. He asks the others what they should do. Huang steps in between them, reminding them that they all awakened that very day and could become battle companions in the future, so they shouldn't act rashly. But before she can suggest a solution, Qiangsheng interrupts her, arrogantly saying that this must be a joke. He declares that the piece of trash provoked him in front of everyone, and now she is asking him to simply lower his head. The bully points his sword at the protagonist and says it's all useless, because even if he begs for forgiveness, he will make Yi understand the difference between a chosen one and a loser, since there is an insurmountable abyss between the two. The teacher reflects that, in theory, Qiangsheng is right because the difference between qualities lies in attribute bonuses. While Yi, level 1 of Class A, and Profession Nuclear Warrior has 100% bonuses. His attributes are Strength 53, Speed 41, Endurance 61, Luck 26, Elemental Power 8, Spirit 11, Skills, Block, and Quickness. The Dust ranking quality equals 100% bonuses, meaning no alteration. A Glimpse rank in the same profession would reach 150%, while an Abyss rank receives 200%. Qiangsheng is also level 1, his class Star Assassin, with 200% bonuses. Strength 62 by 2, Speed 75 by 2, Endurance 22 by 2, Luck 21 by 2, Elemental Power 10 up 2, Spirit 10 up 2, skills, backstab, and ferocity. The teacher thinks that since awakening, someone of abyss rank has double the attributes compared to someone of dust rank, a difference that could never be overcome. The young student from before watches and believes it's over, because in terms of power or status, Yi is completely crushed by his opponent. He wonders why Yi would dare provoke someone so much stronger. Since being mere trash, he could only be hated. He concludes that to survive in such a society, one must avoid problems. If that is not possible, then endure the humiliation, because only those who bow can bear the weight of confrontation. Changsheng charges, activating his ferocity skill, which increases strength by 32%, critical chance by 20%, and also grants 15% lifesteal. The teacher shouts, telling Yi to be careful. However, he remains still, waiting for the attack. Confused, she wonders if he intends to block again, but she knows the defense skill consumes a lot of stamina and that Changsheng's attack power and speed are enormous. She thinks there is no way Yi can withstand it. Desperate, she keeps shouting, asking if he can really dodge. Yi, however, just stares at his opponent and thinks to himself why he should dodge. He activates the quickness skill, which temporarily increases speed by more than 50%, depending on reaction time and proficiency. Enveloped in his aura, Yi advances and simply vanishes. Then he uses Lightning Blink. When quickness reaches 100% proficiency, the user can unleash an instant teleport effect crossing any obstacle in front. Thus, Yi disappears from where he stood and reappears behind Changsheng, leaving him completely confused. His movements are so fast that no one understands what happened. Suddenly, Changsheng feels pain, spits blood, and collapses, indignantly thinking that trash actually managed to hit him. Since Yi was too fast, the others cannot see what happened and start asking each other if anyone saw. To their eyes, it looks like Changsheng simply slipped and fell. Four Eyes tries to hold back laughter, commenting on the pathetic scene. Even the teacher is confused, admitting that this time she couldn't follow his movements either. But a student standing behind analyzes more closely and concludes that, at the moment of the attack, Yi activated quickness and then managed to use the advanced form of the skill. Still, even he cannot identify exactly what Yi did to injure his opponent. The class president, Qi Yin, thinks that, in any case, the fact is that Yi defeated Changsheng with just one move and with absurd ease. She observes carefully and concludes that not only does he already master the use of basic warrior skills at their highest level, he is also capable of applying them in real combat, even controlling the situation to avoid breaking school rules before everyone. Yi remains standing, hands in his pockets, as if nothing happened, while the other students murmur, shocked, wondering what happened to Changsheng since his opponent didn't even seem to move. To them, it is shameful. She keeps looking at the protagonist and asks what happened to him to make him so strong. The system appears before Yi, informing him that he gained 50 professional experience points, level 1 experience, 50 out of 1,000, elemental accumulation, landing a critical hit on an opponent of the star class, and element granted 50 star element points. Yi reflects that everything is happening exactly as he predicted. Fighting with his profession grants professional experience, and defeating enemies of a certain element generates points of that element. However, he thinks that 50 points is far too little and concludes that he must start clearing labyrinths as soon as possible. Trembling with pain, Changsheng glares at him and orders him not to dare leave. He picks up his weapon again and charges, determined to put an end to that trash. But a voice echoes, ordering that it's time to stop. The bully trembles in fear. It is Hong Liang, principal of the elementary division of the Awakened Academy. He asks Changsheng if he hasn't embarrassed himself enough. The boy tries to argue with his uncle while Yi looks at the principal and thinks that he is that person. The principal declares that everyone must be tired after awakening and should stop turning this into a spectacle. Since it was the weekend, he authorizes the class to go home early, rest, and tell their families about their new professions. At the word home, Yi is stunned. The principal approaches him, reprimanding him and reminding him that the school strictly forbids such situations. However, Yi doesn't hear a single word. He thinks that, having just been reborn, he hadn't even enrolled at the start. But now, being 20 years in the past, it means everyone is still alive. However, on Awakening Day, May 22nd, 2105, something happened. Yi turns around and starts walking, ignoring the principal, who calls after him in vain. He only thinks that he could never have forgotten something so important. Suddenly, he takes off running, leaving Hong Liang speaking alone. Irritated, the principal turns to teacher Huang and reprimands her, demanding that she control her students better, warning that he will pretend nothing happened to avoid bigger complications. She bows and apologizes for what occurred. Later, in the principal's office, Changsheng is still upset, claiming Yi only won by luck, and that it would have been impossible to lose otherwise. But Hong Liang slams the desk hard, startling him. He asks if he has any idea what Yi did, He explains that at the moment Changsheng attacked, Yi used quickness and lightning blink, but that isn't even the most important part. In the split second before contact, Yi counterattacked at the weakest point of Changsheng's body, hitting with enough force to break his defense. And the entire sequence was executed using only basic warrior skills. The principal stresses that not even he, with 15 years of battlefield experience, could perform it with such perfection. His nephew's fight, he says, was as ridiculous as watching a professional player face a max-level elementary student, but using only a basic controller. This proves that the boy is anything but simple. Meanwhile, on the city streets, Yi runs desperately, reflecting that after being reborn beyond revenge, there is something he absolutely must do. Exhausted, he stops in front of a building and confirms to himself that this is exactly it. He remembers what happened 20 years ago and decides that he must prevent it from repeating, even if it costs him his new life. May 21st, 2105, at 6:07 p.m. A man laughed non-stop as he watched television, finding the program hilarious. His wife washed the dishes in the kitchen. Yi watches silently from the doorway. When he opens it, the man on the couch is surprised to see him and comments that apparently he finished class earlier than usual. Yi doesn't answer, only clenches his fists. He looks at the woman washing dishes and feels his eyes fill with tears. It was his mother, and at that instant he realizes that he is truly happy to see her alive. His mother turns around, moves her hands quickly, and with a smile uses sign language to say she prepared his favorite spicy noodles. Yi almost cries but manages to disguise it and replies that he would like to eat pickled fish. She signs that maybe tomorrow he can have it, since tonight she already made spicy noodles. Yi insists, begging her to please buy the fish today. His mother, a little surprised, says he is being impossible, opens the door and gets ready to leave. Yi says he will go with her, but his father, sitting on the couch, answers that she can go alone and asks if Yi has a problem with him, since he came home without even greeting his own father. The man stands up, reminding him that it is Awakening Day, and goes to the cabinet, telling his son to share the good news while he grabs a bottle of liquor. This man is Bai Lingsheng, currently level 26, of the Electric Warrior class with 400% attribute increase. Holding 2 bottles, he states that he finished work early and came home to celebrate with his son. Yi keeps his strange look and replies that he did not manage to awaken. He explains that everything went wrong, that at school the process took too long and he ended up not completing the test. His father, a little disappointed, asks why he came home so early then, if that was true. Then he comments that Dale's son awakened as a bright class and concludes that in that case, father and son are both useless. Lingsheng keeps pressing, saying that his son should at least have become an Abyss class, reminding him that in his youth he himself awakened as Abyss without any encouragement. His tone rises, and he throws in Yi's face that he works hard to support him. With murderous intent, he demands that his son say straight away what class he is. The two glare at each other. Yi starts to answer again, but his father smashes one of the bottles on his head, saying he already knows he awakened as dust. Completely losing control, Lingsheng screams that Yi goes to school every day pretending it matters, but when he finally awakens, he turns into trash. He questions whether this is an attempt to disgrace him. Yi looks at his father and thinks that unfortunately that man is not just his father, but also a violent awakened, unable to control his emotions. Lingsheng launches into physical assault, kicking and punching his son. While being beaten, Yi recalls that so much time has passed he almost forgot what happened on the day of his awakening, May 22nd, 2105, in his previous life. When his father found out he was dust class, he felt ashamed and dishonored, venting all his rage on him. His mother tried to protect him but was beaten for an entire hour, ending with a broken leg and a head injury that left her mentally unstable. Yi, weak and terrified, could do nothing but cry as he watched his mother lying on the floor. Back in the present, the protagonist is once again on the ground. He thinks that now he awakened as Nuclear Warrior Class E and chose that class for its special characteristics, but he still needs time to grow stronger. His father, standing furious, orders him to get up. Yi thinks that unfortunately Lingsheng is Class C Abyss rank. His basic information is Level 26, Class C, Electric Warrior, Attribute Increase 400%, Strength 600, Speed 508, Endurance 652, Luck 164, Elemental Power 41, Power 44, Mental Power 32. Unlike Changsheng, his father has vast real combat experience, and Yi knows he still cannot defeat him. Lingsheng grabs his son's hair, yanks hard, and says he should never have let his mother give birth. Yi endures the blows in silence and thinks that his father came home early just to learn the awakening result and that he will not stop until satisfied. At least he managed to get his mother out of the house. While being beaten, he consoles himself with the fact that this time, she is not there to suffer. However, Yi hears the sound of shopping bags falling to the floor and turns in despair. His mother had just returned from shopping and witnessed that horrible scene. Worried, he wonders how she came back so early, realizing that apparently she ran the entire way just to feed him. Moments earlier, his mother was running through the streets thinking she couldn't let her son go hungry, and now, inside the house, she faces that sight. Ling Sheng, overcome with rage, declares that since she is back, she can see with her own eyes the kind of trash she brought into the world, and he starts walking toward her. Yi remembers his past when he was imprisoned, and a man said he had heard that Yi was the first to advance in the green level profession. Normally, to enter the advancement phase, a profession needs to be at least blue level and reach rank A, so how could a boy have advanced so early? And not only that, Yi transformed directly from green level to platinum, something that happens only once in a million. The man imprisoned with him asked why he had been taken there, since that place was for people destined for death. Yi, head lowered, answered that he deserved to die because what kind of man raises his hand against his own mother to death? Remembering this, Yi gathers courage and places himself in front of his mother before his father can strike her, taking the blow in her place. The impact is so violent the windows shatter. Lying on the ground bleeding, he thinks that a skilled awakened, even without using abilities, is far stronger than an ordinary person. A normal person could never endure a punch of that level. His mother, desperate, runs to him and once again puts herself in front to protect him, repeating exactly what happened in his previous life. Ling Sheng closes the apartment door and spits a scornful comment, saying this is truly immortal. He turns to Ruyan and says that on the day he learned of her pregnancy, he was immensely happy, believing it would be the chance for the Bai family to rise again. Holding a chair in his hands, he screams that those two brats should never have had a child, but he could. In his fury, he declares that the Bai family still counts on him to bring glory to the ancestors, so why does their son awaken only as a green-level profession? The most useless of all. He yells that trash like that could never advance, and it is all Ruyan's fault, the fault of her genes. With hatred, he raises the chair, ready to strike. Even before death, Ruyan refuses to move from in front of her son, spreads her arms and closes her eyes, determined to protect him. At the last second, Yi activates Lightning Blink again and appears in front of her, shielding her and throwing his father back. Even wounded, bleeding, and afraid, Yi stands firm, glaring at his father and declaring he must not touch her. Ling Sheng, surprised, realizes his son managed to hit him and says that this is interesting. Ruyan continues trembling, tears streaming, watching the danger her son faces. The father walks toward him, asking if Yi really believes he is an adult, and comments that this is good. Yi thinks he needs to buy time because he must be ready to block the next attack. Ling Sheng charges quickly and Yi tries to use his skill to defend, but the sword he wields is shattered with a single strike. The impact hits him full on, and he feels his ribs throbbing, about to break. Even so, he resists, despite the absurd difference in power. Ling Sheng, furious, screams that his son is challenging his own father and activates the heavy Black Lightning Speed technique, which wraps all attacks in electrical energy. Yi stays in front of his mother and takes the blow without moving a muscle because he knows he cannot retreat. Behind him is the one he most wants to protect. His father is impressed with his son's courage not to back down, but despises it, saying it is useless when you have such a weak profession, and declares that his son deserves to be beaten to death. Yi, wounded, in pain and afraid, does not take a step back and promises himself that this time, no tragedy will be repeated. Ling Sheng raises another chair, asking if his son thinks he is better just because he awakened, and shouts that he no longer knows who is the boss. Yi stands firm, while Ruyan hugs him tightly, trying to protect him with her own body. Then, violent pounding echoes at the door. Someone begins banging hard, demanding they open immediately. Ling Sheng halts the attack, irritated, and asks who is knocking at that hour to ruin his mood. Covered in wounds, the protagonist thinks that finally they have arrived. The father yanks the door open violently, shouting at the reason for the pounding. On the other side were the deputy captain of inspection, a red divine priest of rank A named Liang, and the inspection investigator, a blue divine priest of rank C named Chen Jinwu. Seeing who was at the door, Ling Sheng is startled and asks why the captain was there. Liang shows a document explaining they received a report that a wanted criminal named Snow had been spotted near that building and that they were conducting a house-to-house search. He asks if Ling Sheng noticed any suspects. The protagonist's father shows nervousness but starts laughing, saying that Snow appears on television every day, and if he showed up there, of course he would be reported. The captain senses something odd since both the woman and the child were hurt and frightened. He asks if Ling Sheng's son is all right. The man tries to cover it up, placing his hand on the captain's shoulder and explaining that the boy fell when he went to buy groceries. and that it is nothing the vice captain should worry about. But Yi stands up and says that is not what happened, revealing that it was his own father who was beating them. Ling Sheng looks at his son with hatred. At that moment, the system appears before Yi, informing him that a very small number of awakened can trigger a second awakening based on their original profession, significantly increasing combat power. 18 minutes earlier, downstairs, Yi had called the police, reporting that he saw someone enter the Ziyue mansion building and that this person looked like Snow. He remembers making the call from a small shop across the street before coming up, and that upon receiving an alert about Snow, the security team would immediately respond with maximum force. He did not expect them to arrive so quickly, but he had enough time. The captain asks if what the child said is true. Ling Sheng tries to justify himself, saying his son is only joking, because how could he lay a hand on his own child? Just thinking about it would hurt too much. Yi insists, gets up, and details. He says his arm was struck by a stool, his head by a wine bottle, his shoulder by a kick, and his stomach by a punch. He emphasizes that all of these injuries could be verified right then. The captain is shocked by the account while the father grows even more furious. Yi continues and cites the management regulations of the divine canon of the awakened, explaining that upon awakening, abusive behavior and arbitrary injuries to others are provided for in Chapter 8, Article 4, which stipulates immediate imprisonment for 15 days if the perpetrator poses danger. The investigator carefully notes everything while he and the captain exchange surprised glances. Ling Sheng looks at his son, about to curse him, but is interrupted by the captain, who identifies himself as Inspector Liang and declares that he is legally arresting him, reminding him he has the right to remain silent. Jin Wu restrains Ling Sheng, who curses his son in fury. The captain urges calm, warning that if he resists, control measures will be applied. Even as he is taken away, the man shouts until the very last moment, promising his son that he will return. As soon as the door closes, Yi turns and calls for his mother, who runs and embraces him tightly. He tries to comfort her, saying everything is fine now, and thinks that this time he managed to protect her. However, he knows he has only 15 days. He keeps consoling her, promising that was the last time it would happen, and believes he now has enough time to grow stronger. While holding her in his arms, Yi decides he will not accept that beating, for he had just stolen the key to his father's safe. This key, which in his previous life he only discovered after Ling Sheng's death, is what now can allow him to climb from rank E to rank C. Yi goes to his father's room, remembering that normally he hid this object inside the most secret safe, keeping it a secret even from the family. When opening the safe, Yi finds a weapon and thinks that with it, he might even try to solo a demonic cave, because currently only the caves allow profession advancement. The problem is that all are under guild jurisdiction, and only members have authorization to enter. The only caves he can access now are those managed by the school and the child-level demonic cave he knew in his previous life. He recalls the records: hidden caves, applicable levels, difficulties, and rewards. Standing before the entrance of a demonic cave, Yi steels himself. He must be the fastest and surpass everyone, no matter the cost. The Cave of Edayon is one of those places where monsters dwell. Occupations can enter, face creatures, and gain experience, improving combat power and increasing occupational level. The ranks are EDCBA, May 22nd, 2105. Friday, 10:02 p.m. Inspection Detention Room. Ling Sheng is imprisoned, and the guards comment that this time the alarm mobilized the entire security team, even the vice captain. Some question if it might have been false, but the vice captain replies that when it comes to rebels, there can be no negligence, and stresses that if Snow is really in the county on Celebration Day, it will be a serious problem. Jin Wu asks Liang if he heard that the captain would return earlier this time, but the vice captain cuts the conversation, stating it is not the time for that. Inside the cell, Ling Sheng tries to negotiate, asking them to be flexible, promising he will never repeat it. He even hints at a bribe, mentioning he heard the captain's wife was in recovery and saying he has a good friend who runs the best postpartum care center in Chuxi County. Liang stands up in fury, asking if he intends to continue with such absurd proposals, reminding him that he himself was once a guild member. As he leaves, he asks if Ling Sheng has any idea how he ended up in that situation. Trembling with rage, Yi's father releases his aura inside the cell. Jin Wu just laughs and comments that if the report does not check out, it will not just be detention, and advises him to rest, for he will be transferred to the prison of the awakened in the morning. Before leaving, he only tells him to stay quiet. Meanwhile, Yi looks at his mother lying down and thinks that in 15 days his father will be back, so he must get stronger before then. Demonic caves are his only option. He knows they can appear anywhere, as spaces parallel to the human world, accessible through doors that appear suddenly. Once detected, they are guarded by guilds since they contain large numbers of demonic beasts and rare resources, making them ideal for awakened to improve abilities. However, they are also extremely dangerous and require authorized teams. Yi places his hand on one of these doors and remembers that in his previous life, that cave was only discovered 5 years later, when it was already too late and demons had invaded the human world. An F-rank cave normally requires 3 E-rank awakened, while an E-rank cave demands at least 5 people, 3 of E-rank and 2 of D-rank. Without hesitation, he opens the door. Based on estimates, the chances of survival are low, but he must try. The cave has 90% presence of F-rank demons and is the lowest level hidden cave he can access now. Upon crossing, he feels the dense energy engulf everything, the entrance to a newly discovered cave. He extends his hand and reflects that these caves require cooperation between different elements and professions to increase the chance of victory, but he has no other choice. He must get stronger alone, as soon as possible. Releasing his aura, he advances into the darkness without fear of what he may encounter. Walking, he reaches a region of ice and snow, recognizing the domain of snow-type magical beasts. A noise alerts him, and he perceives the approach of a creature, an ice field bear, an E-rank magical beast. Yi is startled, for the chances of encountering such a monster in that E-rank cave were only 10%. Yi quickly turns, questioning whether that cave had remained undiscovered, precisely because most of the beasts were dormant. At that instant, a sedentary blood forest wolf, rank E, leaps at him. The protagonist thinks that even a wolf like that has a level higher than his. Quickly, he manages to dodge and leaps back, but the wolf charges again. Yi raises his dagger and blocks the strike. The creature keeps attacking, but none can hit him, and when he sees an opening, Yi strikes with precision, cutting the monster in half with a single blow. He had defeated his first magical beast in that cave. Thinking about his weapon, Yi recognizes that this rank A equipment found in his father's safe would never be available on the common market. It was the piece that filled the gap in his current combat power. The weapon, called Aran, forged in Hunwu stone, was extremely sharp, capable of cutting iron like mud. Its attributes were Strength plus 150, Luck plus 50, Endurance plus 100, Lifesteal plus 20%, Armor penetration plus 20%. Yi knows that even with such a weapon, the beasts have high defenses, and that even striking vital points, it would still take 3 or 4 blows to bring them down. He sighs and thinks that he already misses the times when he was rank L. Then the system appears again, informing him that he gained plus 52 profession experience points and plus 50 elemental cloud points for defeating an enemy associated with that element. Yi concludes that to level up, he will probably have to defeat about 20 wolves, and that 10 levels are needed to move from rank E to rank D. Soon, noises echo through the cave and he sees countless wolves appearing before him. He thinks that the smell of blood attracted the entire pack and wonders if they are really uniting against him. Knowing he could be attacked at any moment, he decides not to wait. He launches the attack first. His strikes are accurate, critical at the monster's vital points, and his dodge skill helps him evade attacks, opening space for precise counterattacks. Yi keeps advancing, eliminating the wolves one by one until he prepares a final strike. Concentrating energy in his body, he leaps and dashes through the pack like lightning, slaying them all at once. However, after the slaughter, an even larger wolf appears before him. Yi realizes it is the new alpha of the pack. Without hesitation, he charges, and after a sequence of attacks, he manages to defeat it as well. Exhausted, he thinks he is now ready to update his rank. The system confirms. Maximum experience reached, Yi rises to level 2 of rank E. Then he receives 12 attribute points to distribute. He distributes the points, but, breathing heavily, reflects that he has slain only 20 wolves and is already exhausted. His body is still far too fragile for an aspirant to rank A. Moreover, he urgently needs a dimensional backpack, or he will have to abandon many of the items dropped by the monsters. Yi holds one of the drops, a snow wolf diamond, an extremely resistant material used in forging weapons with spatial minerals. The market value of such a stone is approximately 10,000 yuan. Walking through the cave, Yi reflects that to access high-level demon lairs, the only entry is through the Guild of Gods. The school is subordinate to the guild and serves as a talent selection ground for its teams. The goal of nearly every student is to become strong enough to be chosen by a guild. If they are discarded, that can mean stagnation for the rest of their lives. He remembers that this is exactly what happened to his father. Excluded from the team, he was forever stuck at rank C. Yi looks around, realizing that his solo progress is too slow, and that the longer he spends there, the more energy he consumes because of the low temperature. Suddenly, he sees a new wave of wolves approaching. He starts running, reaches a nearby forest, and begins cutting down trees as he flees. The sound of falling trees attracts not only more wolves, but also another creature. Yi stops running, takes a deep breath, and faces the monsters gathering around him. Exactly what he wanted. He watches all the enemies surrounding him and decides he must resolve it in the most practical way possible. Suddenly, an explosion shakes the cave and Yi turns in alarm, thinking that all the commotion he caused had awakened all the dormant monsters. If that was the case, that giant bear should also already be awake. The ground begins to tremble with heavy steps, and the Trunda bear appears, crushing smaller beasts under its paws. It is a level B creature, a gigantic, cloud-type demonic beast. The system shows an alert. The bear is in a state of rage, will attack any target indiscriminately, and its damage is increased by 20%. Yi smiles, for this was exactly what he wanted. The bear would draw all the aggro, allowing him to simply dodge and finish off the stragglers. With this strategy, he begins eliminating monsters one by one, taking advantage of the bear's attacks. Even though it is a higher-ranked creature, the bear still has little reasoning, and this favored his plan. Yi advances, cutting down distracted enemies, but realizes his body is being consumed quickly. The energy cost is still absurd. Tired, he raises his sword and decides it is time to move to the next phase. They were standing on a layer of ice, and Yi had analyzed the environment from the start. This was not a frozen lake, but a suspended ice bridge between two channels. When the bear and the pack charge together, Yi drives his weapon into the ice and murmurs that it is time for everyone to fall. The ground begins to crack, fissures spread, and in seconds the bridge collapses. Most of the monsters plunge down, and the system begins recording the experience gained in succession. Even the Trunda bear falls, leaving only a few enemies on the surface. Yi thinks that with this move he eliminated the vast majority, and now he only needs to deal with the remainder, consuming the least amount of energy. The system displays a new achievement. Title acquired, 1 against 100. Effect: when facing multiple targets, all attributes increase by 10%. Still panting, Yi reflects on something he had been thinking from the beginning. Every demonic cave has a leader, a final boss. An E-level lair should have something like the brutal Lion King of E10, so why had it not yet appeared? That is when all the remaining monsters, including the wolves and the surviving bears, suddenly enter a frenzy. Traces of magic surge in the air, and Yi recognizes the energy, ice magic. He immediately realizes he was mistaken. The leader was not unconscious. He was merely waiting. The spell spreads, instantly freezing the monsters caught in it. Yi understands that the boss had planned to let him exhaust all his energy before intervening. As he tries to flee, his feet begin to freeze. The magic catches him, and he realizes the ice bridge was a trap created on purpose. His body begins to be taken by ice, and rage builds inside him. The true enemy had stayed hidden all along, waiting to reap the rewards. The shadow finally reveals itself. Appearing before him is a being with intelligent eyes, brimming with elemental energy. The system confirms: Cave Lord, Blue Forest King, Cloud Elemental Mage, level 11, rank D. At his side, 2 warrior lieutenants, level 10 demonic apes, complete his guard. The leader smiles as he faces Yi, and the system updates the data. Hidden Cave, Ice Dome, level E, special, contains Intelligent Lord, level 11, rank D. Danger, high, recommended challenge, 5 rank E. Awaken plus 3 rank D. Yi swallows hard, realizing he's facing a boss far beyond what he should face alone. May 23rd, 2105, Saturday, 2:05 a.m. Still trapped inside the demonic cave, Bai's body was frozen. He thinks that if he remains like this, he will enter complete hypothermia in no time. The Elemental Lord raises his hand and orders one of his servants to attack. The creature charges swiftly. Yi, with no choice, forces his body. Just as the blow is about to land, the ice holding him begins to shatter. The monster strikes, but the protagonist disappears from where he stood, even surprising the Lord. Yi had activated his parry skill. When executed with precision, it blocks 100% of damage. If used again within 0.09 seconds, it can reflect the physical attack back. With this, he manages to defend and counterattack at the same time. He realizes, however, that he had to summon all the energy he had to break the ice, draining almost all of his stamina. The system issues a notification: Shatter activated. This condition occurs when the Awakened invokes all his power, allowing him to break free from control effects, but at the cost of great exhaustion. Wounded and weary, Yi understands he must buy time to unleash another impactful move like that, and if the Lord repeats the spell, he will not have the strength to resist. Facing his enemy, he concludes he must defeat him before it happens again. But suddenly, he sees the colossal bear breaking free from the ice, thawed by spell. The massive beast faces him. Yi thinks that the nuclear element, his attribute, is naturally countered by the Lord's cloud element, and that with his current stamina, defeating just the 2 apes would already be risky, let alone facing the bear as well. If more monsters appear, his chances of survival will drop to 0. One of the demonic apes charges, and Yi manages to block the strike. But while dealing with it, the second one already lunges at him. With both pressing him, Yi leaps back, dodging, but soon feels his body giving in. He had no strength left. Before he can catch his breath, the colossal bear also rushes toward him. Yi retreats, creating distance, and watches the small army ahead, remembering that the low temperature and cutting cold were draining even more of his energy. The Lord casts another spell, laughing, and unleashes an ice storm. Yi is incredulous at the spell's cooldown speed. Even alarmed, he steals his expression and thinks that in his previous life, he had already faced countless terrible situations. And it was thanks to those repeated challenges that he developed the ability to spot opportunities. Now he had only two options: remain fighting, even without stamina, knowing he would die sooner or later, or the second option was clear. Yi turns and runs toward the cliff. Without hesitation, he leaps. But even in the air, the Lord's magic reaches him and freezes his body. Both the Lord and the monsters are surprised by his choice. Frozen, Yi begins to plummet into the rift, merely watching the descent and thinking of the path to the ground. Meanwhile, at his home, someone knocks on his bedroom door. With no response, his mother enters, thinking he was sleeping late since it was the weekend. To her surprise, the bed is empty. She approaches and finds a note. "Mom, I'm going to a friend's house. I won't be back too late. Don't worry about me." Reading it, she feels it isn't true. If he were going to visit someone, he would have told her personally, not left a note. Uneasy, she looks up at the ceiling, trying to understand what is happening with her son. For since the day before, he had seemed different, as if he were another person. Back in the cave, Yi's body is carried along by the icy stream. The bandage on his face comes loose, swept away by the current, stained with blood. Coughing from the intense cold, he clings to a rock. Between heavy breaths, he thinks of the levels and points he gained after defeating more than 100 magical beasts when the ice bridge collapsed. Analyzing the situation, Yi realizes he only gained 3 levels, which means only about 60 magical beasts were killed. That means 40 still survived at the bottom of the cliff. When he jumped, he had already guessed there was probably a stream down there, and that's why many beasts survived. Leaping was his only chance to live. During the fall, he had once again used his skill to shatter the ice and landed in the lake, but doing so had nearly depleted all his stamina. And even falling into the water, the impact from the height still caused serious damage to his body. The system alerts: continuous blood loss, weakened state, and low temperature condition. Injured, bleeding, cold, and drained. He can barely move and thinks he is already at his limit, closing his eyes. At that moment, a magical beast approaches and lets out a ferocious roar. It is the Glacial Lord, Level 9, Class E, a cloud element beast. Still with his eyes closed, Bai begins to recall his past life. The drinking invitations, the embraces, the shared meals, the strategy studies, his mother's concern, the cave leader who pushed him to the extreme, and also all those who betrayed him, sending him to hell until the end. The will begins to burn inside his body, his hand closes, his arm trembles, and he thinks he will have no limits, that he cannot afford regrets anymore as before. The monster attacks, but Yi grabs its fangs and mouth as if they were nothing, leaving the creature stunned. With a different aura and a confident gaze, he promises himself he will not let it happen again. He exerts enormous force on the beast and shouts that he already lost everything once, even his life. A supernatural power bursts from his body, and with a strike, he smashes the monster's face, breaking its teeth and hurling it away. Yi keeps screaming that he will never again lose or die. He takes his weapon again, panting, and his body begins to be enveloped in energy. The monster comes at him again, but only a desperate situation can trigger a class advancement. Surrounded, Bai rises and says that he chose to enter the cave alone, lured the magical beasts, and even jumped off a cliff. The monster horde above finally descends to the lower part and surrounds the exit. The Glacial Lord growls, and Yi continues saying he always throws himself into hopeless situations, all to regain the feeling from before: adrenaline. Extreme despair stimulates his energy, and he feels the adrenaline coursing through his body, triggering the advancement. The system attempts to initiate class advancement, but the conditions are not met. Advancement fails. However, Yi learns the advanced skill, Nuclear Holy Swordsman. With a steady gaze, he says that even without reaching advancement, he obtained this supreme skill ahead of time. He raises his sword and declares that now it is time to clear the cave completely. The system notifies again: despair experience at its limit, adrenaline maximally stimulated, attempt to advance class. Conditions not met, advancement fails again. Even so, the advanced skill of the Nuclear Holy Swordsman has been acquired. Yi faces the tiger before him, roaring fiercely. Moving with precision, as in a graceful dance, he activates Sanctuary. The monsters behind him charge all at once. His energy bursts into attacks that spread in all directions, cutting down every enemy around him with extreme ease. In seconds, all nearby monsters are eliminated, He looks at his own hand and several notifications appear. Blood Fang obtained, Icefield Beast Hide obtained, Proud Bear Bone obtained, level increased to Solar Class, rank E, 12 attribute points received, Sanctuary effect activated, Fatigue removed, Stamina restored, Snow Wolf Fang obtained, Snow Wolf Core obtained. Another notification appears. Title acquired, Wanderer of the Icefield. Resistance against Cloud Element creatures plus 100. Ice damage reduction activated. The supreme skill learned is Sanctuary. After receiving all the upgrades, Yi says it is time to move on to the next objective. He leaves the cave and looks at the top of the cliff, declaring that he is coming back to deal with that scum. Now his stats are updated. Solar level with much higher attributes. The system continues tallying all the monsters defeated, and with that, Yi rises to level 9 of the class, receiving another 12 attribute points to distribute. He thinks that after reaching level 8, killing monsters of the same class has become extremely easy, and on top of that, he can barely feel the cold anymore. The system notifies that the effect of Wanderer of the Icefield is active, increasing resistance against cloud element creatures and reducing ice damage. He also possesses the Sanctuary skill, which stores all accumulated damage and releases it all at once against a group of enemies. However, it can only be activated after enough fatigue and damage have been accumulated. Thanks to this, his stamina is fully restored. While climbing the cliff, Yi thinks that he does not know how much time has passed inside, but he must finish soon. Otherwise, his mother will be very worried. A short distance away inside a hut, the cave lord was seated, surrounded by his ape guards, resting peacefully. Suddenly, he senses something approaching and his hut is attacked. Bai had reached level 10 of the class, the maximum level of his current category, after successfully defeating the restless bear of the Icefield. He declares that finally, they are face to face again. Still on May 23rd, Saturday at 11 p.m., in his home, Yi's mother looked out the window, worried, asking where her son had gone and why he had not returned yet. She had already prepared the meal and pleaded for him to be safe. Back in the cave, Yi attacks the hut where the leader was resting, throwing the carcass of the giant bear before them. He stares at the leader, who orders one of his subordinates to advance. The demonic ape charges, but this time the situation is completely different. Bai defends with ease and, with a single strike, cleaves the ape in half, leaving even the chief surprised at his current strength. The leader realizes he has lost control of the situation. He once again summons his ice storm, but this time, it has no effect at all. Yi simply advances. The system notifies that the resistance effect against the cloud element has been activated and the ice damage successfully mitigated. The cave lord grabs another magic scepter and orders all the guards to attack at once. Yi, however, shows no fear. He declares that once he finishes them all, he will be able to reach Class D. Using Lightning Blink, he cuts through the guards and goes straight for the leader, slicing off one of his hands. The chief, desperate, tries to retreat, but it is already too late. Yi continues striking without stopping, declaring that this is the end. The system notifies Cloud Element Mage Leader, level 11, Class D, Blue Forest King defeated. Reward, 1,000 experience points. Yi successfully advances to Nuclear Warrior Class D. Now he is a Class D Nuclear Warrior, with all attribute bonuses increased by another 100%. His current level is 11, Class D, and another 12 attribute points have been received. The system alerts that items are available for collection. It also notifies that one of the items permanently increases intelligence by 1 point and that his cloud element accumulation has reached the threshold. A new profession is about to awaken. Bai is astonished. Realizing he had fought so hard, he completely forgot about it. The system confirms new profession acquired, Cloud Element Mage level 1. Switching professions is possible at any time. Yi is surprised to see that he has obtained a red profession. Even at level 1, this category already grants a 200% bonus. He compares his attributes and concludes that they are already on par with his level D warrior class. In addition, he obtained the Class D Mage Weapon, Magic Stone, which grants plus 40 elemental power plus 40 spirit and increases area of effective spells by 50%. He also received a Class D Magic Pouch capable of storing up to 20 items. As the demonic apes watch, Yi crouches and calmly gathers the items scattered across the floor, leaving them all shocked. His aura now turns red, and he says that in this case, only a few small cleanups remain in this place. His eyes begin to change color and his strength intensifies even further. The system notifies that the change to Cloud Element Mage has been successfully completed. Ready for combat, he declares that he would like to try out this new profession he had never used before. Outside at his home, it was already May 24th, Sunday, 5 a.m., and his mother still had not slept. Sitting on the couch, she waited desperately for her son's return. Exhausted and drained from staying awake so long, she clutched her arm while remaining motionless. Suddenly, the door opens, and she hears the sound. With tears in her eyes, she rises quickly upon seeing that it really was her son. Entering, Bai closes the door and apologizes for making her wait so long, but she only runs toward him and hugs him tightly. Unable to hold back her tears, she clings to him, while Bai says that she stayed awake all this time and didn't even eat. At that moment, amidst the emotion, he says he has a good proposal for her and asks if she would like to hear it. Yi uses the magic pouch and, besides his essential weapon, manages to bring along a dozen of the most valuable items. He meets with a man and hands over these items for appraisal. The man examines a core in his hand and says that in the future it could sell for 800, but Yi replies that he wants 8,000. The man is stunned, shouting, asking if he's joking and if he really wants that much for such a small core. Yi quickly snatches the core back, saying that if he doesn't want it, that's fine. The man tries to negotiate, asking him to wait, explaining that he can't just demand such an extraordinary price, and makes an offer. He'll pay 2,000 and take everything. Yi counters, saying he would do it for 5,000, but the man insists and offers 3,000 for the piece, claiming it's his final offer. The protagonist raises from 5,000 to 6,000, leaving the buyer confused and asking why he increased the price. Yi keeps going from 6,000 to 7,000 and desperate. The man accepts, only begging that he not raise it any further. Deal closed. Yi walks away satisfied with the money in hand. He thinks that in his past life he met many brokers of magical minerals, and therefore knows how to sell such items for good prices. As he walks and looks at the money, he thinks that with this amount, he can rent a great place for his mother. Quickly, he takes Ruyun to see a new home. She is dazzled, and Yi remembers that in his past life, his mother never had a single day of happiness. In this life, he promises himself he will do everything so she can enjoy herself and live well. Seeing her smile, he goes to the agent and makes his offer. He will pay 3 months' rent, 15,000 per month, with services and fees included. The agent accepts, praising his decisiveness. However, his mother worries, saying the amount is far too high. On May 24th, 2105, Sunday, 8 p.m., in the new rented apartment, Ruyun prepares dinner. Smiling and humming, happy as can be. Yi passes behind her, observes the scene, and smiles, thinking that it had been a long time since he had seen that light in his mother's face. Relieved, he goes to his new room. Sitting on the bed, he reflects that the matter of housing is resolved. He managed to rise to Class E and even gained a new profession. With a small knife, he begins carving a magic stone and thinks that, although his father is still in prison, he cannot lower his guard. Until that matter is completely resolved, he cannot pursue vengeance without restraint. He finishes carving and creates a bracelet, reflecting that tomorrow is the day to return to school. The bracelet, made from magic stone, is a rank D weapon called Unyielding Stone, capable of polishing and channeling magic, plus 40 elemental power, plus 40 spirit, and plus 50% spell area of effect. Confident, Yi thinks that now it's time to find that thing. May 24th, 2105, Sunday, 8 p.m. Elsewhere, Changsheng emerges from a portal with his team, all exhausted. They remark that the young master has improved greatly. A girl approaches, trembling, and offers water, asking him to rest, but he treats her harshly, shouting, slapping her hand, and knocking the bottle down. Impatient, he orders them to move on to the next labyrinth, recalling Yi and thinking that no one will evolve faster than him. Changsheng had reached Astrological Assassin Level 3, Class C, and believes that in the combat simulation test he will show everyone who the true genius is. Somewhere else, a woman watches from a window while reading a document. She comments that there is not a single gold profession among the newly awakened this year and concludes there is nothing to expect from the simulation test. May 25th, 2105, Monday, 7:30 a.m. In the rented apartment, the table is set and Ruyun, happy, joins her son for breakfast. Yi eats quickly and complains that she didn't wake him up. She replies that he was sleeping so deeply she preferred to let him rest and asks him to eat slowly, reminding him there's no problem being late once in a while, caressing his head to reassure him. She begins caressing his face and Yi smiles, thinking that she really is right because it had been so long since he had slept so well, and he had never had such a peaceful breakfast at her side. Suddenly, Ruyun slaps his shoulder a little harder, startling him, and he asks what's going on. She asks if he would like to receive something, maybe a toy, a book, or even an electronic device. Yi laughs, confused, and questions why, out of nowhere, she wants to give him a gift. His mother points to the calendar and reminds him that his birthday will be next Friday. He is shocked and surprised to realize that June 5th is his birthday. In his past life, it had been a long time since he celebrated that date, for after his mother's death, there were never celebrations again. As the years passed, he eventually forgot his own birthday. Yi clenches his fists on the table and keeps eating. asking himself if there is anything he truly wants. Looking at his smiling and happy mother, he realizes that, for now, he already has what he desires most in the world. As he finishes his meal, he thinks that now it's time to complete his next objective, and, with a cold gaze, decides the moment has come to put an end to that man. Soon after, at the Affiliated Academy for the Awakened, one of the evaluators asks if the students rested well after the weekend, and states that they now need to begin preparations for the combat simulation. He explains that probably none of them understand the importance of this evaluation. He stresses that in that elementary academy, directly subordinate to the Divine Eagle, every move they make will be observed. The combat simulation is the first stage where they will present themselves after awakening, and the battle will serve as the graduation assessment, broadcast live in its entirety. The evaluator explains that the student with the best performance will have the chance to participate in the training pilgrimage with the high school division. This pilgrimage is the annual and most direct opportunity to make contact with the Divine Eagle, as it brings together the most outstanding students of elementary and high school for a trip to the Shengwei Nation headquarters. Yi thinks about the Divine Eagle headquarters, remembering that it was there he met his master and also the birthplace of that person. However, that person and his master never met, because he only joined the Divine Corps after Yi was already part of the team. He begins to fixate on the idea that to find that person again, obtaining a high score in the evaluation and entering the training pilgrimage is the fastest path. One of the students shouts, reminding that the simulation will already be next Friday. Though afraid, he says he's excited, with blood boiling. The bullied student comments that he heard the simulation takes place inside a labyrinth and asks if it's true. The teacher points to the side and announces the start of official training, explaining that the first stage is physical conditioning. That room is a gravity room, and everyone must begin with 10 sets of bus runs. One student gets excited and says he will do 20 sets. Yi just watches in silence, following the line until he approaches the teacher. At that moment, he declares that he does not want to use that training room. The other students are surprised. The teacher confirms his name and comments that he heard about the conflict with Jiangsheng last week, but warns that he cannot simply skip training just because he won with a red quality profession. Yi replies that he would like to undergo specialized training. Even the teacher is surprised and asks what he means by that, implying that Yi is questioning the teaching methods and physical conditioning itself. Yi explains that physical conditioning is essential for most awakened, and the gravity room is not a wrong choice. However, he stresses that bus runs are suitable only for professions like warriors and assassins, which require speed and coordination, but not everyone needs this type of training. He adds that mages and enchanters, for example, should prioritize the elements room to train control over elemental power. Each profession has different attributes and habits, and therefore the training focus should vary according to need. The teacher begins to get irritated, saying that apparently Yi is trying to teach the teacher to do his own job. Qi Yin watches the situation and thinks that the training method Yi described is exactly the same mentioned by Dong Yang, the Divine Corps training officer. She remembers that this was proposed by him recently, and if her father hadn't brought the video back, she wouldn't even know. That's why she can't understand how Yi had the same idea as that man. The bespectacled boy tries to warn in a low voice, saying that even if Yi is right, he should be more careful with the teacher's feelings, since he is the most qualified trainer at the school and cannot be contradicted like that. The teacher places a hand on Yi's shoulder, frightening the bespectacled boy, but to everyone's surprise, he begins to smile and says that the method Yi mentioned really does sound interesting. He admits it was he who didn't pay enough attention to notice it. The bespectacled boy sighs in relief, realizing nothing bad would happen. The teacher continues and explains that even if the method is impressive, there is still a problem. There are many students at the school, and it would be extremely difficult to meet the specific needs of everyone in a short time. He says that the combat simulation is the graduation presentation of elementary school, and a mistake could ruin a person's life. Watching the students enter the gravity room, he remarks that for a teacher, choosing a student's future or letting them choose for themselves is always a dilemma. Yi watches his classmates stepping into the room and thinks that, although his family was terrible in his past life, he was lucky to meet good teachers who helped him grow without losing his way. That's why he looks at the teacher and asks him to trust him, promising not to disappoint him at graduation. The teacher, intrigued, asks Yi to explain more clearly how he wants to train, reminding him that he awakened as a nuclear warrior. Yi points to the room next door and asks if he can set the elemental suppression of the ceiling room to maximum level. The students overhear and ask what that room is, but the teacher cuts them off. Yi feels a little embarrassed, smiles, and answers that yes, even as a warrior, he wants to balance his abilities and challenge his own weaknesses. In truth, he thinks he cannot reveal to anyone that he acquired another profession. Qi Yin seizes the moment, raises her hand, and says, She also wants to train elemental control since she's a mage. The teacher sighs, rubs his head, and replies that it's fine as long as she doesn't embarrass him in the final evaluation. As they head to the training room, Chi-yin invites Yi to train with her, but he refuses, saying he prefers a private room. She insists, asking if it wouldn't be more practical to train as a pair, but quickly realizes she's been rejected and asks if he really turned her down. Yi just confirms and moves on. She comments that this behavior makes her even more interested, while the boy with glasses only watches. He crouches, tired, and asks the teacher if he can rest, but receives a slap on the shoulder and a refusal. Inside the training room, Yi thinks he is extremely familiar with the warrior profession, but still just a beginner as a mage. The system notifies that his elemental pressure is at 10, and he thinks he needs to master that quickly. His body begins to freeze, and he reflects that he must hide his secret as much as possible, because no one can know he can acquire other professions. The system indicates elemental suppression at 30%. Yi thinks that this school is under the jurisdiction of the gods, and they will know of his every move. His body keeps freezing, he closes his eyes, enters deep concentration, and thinks that if he reveals his secrets too early, he will become the target of those people. As for his classmates, he decides it's better not to get involved. In the other room, Chi-yin also focuses on training, telling herself she cannot let Yi surpass her again, though her elemental suppression was set to just 1%. At the end of the day, after classes, Yi was heading home when two classmates asked him to wait. He doesn't answer, only thinking that those two keep following him. They shout for him not to walk so fast. Yi remembers that in his past life, those two were his best friends in elementary school. Since they all suffered bullying and stayed at the back of the school, they started hanging out together after classes. He recalls the time when, after evaluations, the three were always in the last positions, concluding they probably wouldn't make it to high school. For Yi, that was the only happy period in elementary school. Now, however, he gets on his bike and pedals faster, reflecting that in this life his only goal is revenge, and friendships would only hold him back. Besides, there's still that special person. The two classmates watch Yi moving away. One of them asks what's going on since he ran off alone again just like last Friday, and recalls that they thought they were an unbreakable trio. The boy with glasses comments that Yi seems stronger, stressing that after awakening he suddenly became much more confident. He lowers his head and wonders why someone on a bike would wait for those on foot. Ahead, Yi is stopped, waiting for them. He recommends the two get a lung exam when they have the chance. Surprised, they say they knew he would wait for them so they could go home together. But Yi gets back on the bike and replies no, because they wouldn't be able to keep up with him. Annoyed, one of the boys asks if he waited only to mock them. He yells that if he hadn't spent all his energy in physical training, he would catch Yi easily. But the boy with glasses counters, saying he only did 6 laps, which makes the friend even angrier, accusing him of having done even fewer. As he rides off, Yi thinks about his friends. In his past life during high school, Specs was diagnosed several times with lung disease, took medical leave, and eventually passed away shortly after. Even if they aren't friends in this life, Yi wishes that he lives and stays healthy. The two classmates keep watching, unable to understand why Yi suddenly became so cold, even calling him a jerk. The boy with glasses says he really has changed, but still feels that Yi remains the same person. In another scene on a beach in the Shanghai Nation, at a new recruit's training camp, a man lying in a chair comments that he heard of a Divine Eagle recruit with exceptional performance. Another approaches, and the man asks if it was him who broke all the records. The newcomer replies that he reminds him very much of Dongyang and that he came only to inform him of something. On Monday night, May 25th, Yi was having dinner with his mother. During the meal, he asks her not to go out alone anymore and assures her he will arrive earlier to take care of shopping. Ruyun smiles and agrees, but Yi thinks that's still not enough. He needs to provide her with a stable and safe environment as soon as possible. Meanwhile, in the awakened prison, Ling Sheng was receiving food in the cafeteria. Discreetly, he hands something to a guard and whispers that he'll leave that matter in his hands. The guard replies not to worry because it's all arranged and he'll be able to leave the next day. On Tuesday morning, Yi was training at school. He thinks that by now he's become familiar with mage controls and it's essential to calculate casting time and elemental power needed. His classmates were also working hard, improving their performance in the runs. On Wednesday, Specs also shows progress. Again, the two invite him to dinner. Yi refuses, thanks them, and explains he needs to get home early. They don't understand, complaining that he's become too cold. As he walks away, Yi raises his hand and advises the friend in green clothes. As an archer, his bowstring animation before firing is too long, so he should practice more of the initial movements. The boy bursts with happiness at receiving not only advice, but also a gesture of affection, thanking the protagonist for it. On Thursday, after class, Specs decides to follow Yi's recommendation and goes to the school hospital for a lung exam. The doctor says it was great he did the exam early and explains that this type of parasitic tumor can grow rapidly once it begins to develop. Specs is frightened by the revelation, while the doctor adds that it will be necessary to schedule surgery soon in a major hospital, assuring him that after removal, he will be fine. Still suspicious, Specs thanks him and confirms he'll make an appointment the following week. He immediately recalls Yi asking him to check his lungs when he had the chance and feels unsettled. He thinks that if he hadn't missed the school physical, he wouldn't even have included a lung exam in the list. Confused, he keeps wondering how Yi knew there was something wrong with him, and this raises another question in his mind. What exactly happened to his friend when he went down the stairs alone? At that moment, he starts hearing some students commenting that Chiang Sheng improved again, reached class level 4 and will be the first in the evaluation. Others doubt it, saying that to level up, one must face a labyrinth. But soon, another boy clarifies that Chiang Sheng's family owns a private labyrinth used to train the family's army. Hidden, Specs listens until one of them mentions the man Chiang Sheng fought over the weekend and warns that he intends to take revenge that very afternoon right after classes. The others agree, saying it was expected, because someone with that temper wouldn't endure a defeat without retaliation. Then they reveal that Chiang Sheng is armed and plans to attack outside the school, making clear that his intention is to kill the protagonist. Specs panics, runs as fast as he can, and thinks this cannot happen. He knew provoking someone like Chiang Sheng was far too dangerous, so he must hurry to help his friend before it's too late. As he runs, he imagines that the enemy might even gather accomplices to ambush Yi. Suddenly, he feels his body heavy, his speed slows, and doubt invades him. What good is it to go along? But he remembers that Yi saved his life and thinks that even if it costs his own, he must do something. Upon reaching a locked door with a chain, he questions why he's trying to enter that locker when his principle was always to avoid the plot. Still, he breaks the lock without hesitation, opens the door, and repeats to himself that Yi gave his life back, so he cannot back down. He grabs one of the weapons stored, holds it firmly, and in a moment of courage declares himself ready. However, he is surprised by a voice asking why he's entering there, and all his confidence disappears. Trembling, he looks back and sees Chi Yin. Confused, he hears the girl ask the reason for his hurry, until he shouts that he needs to save Yi. She is shocked by what she hears. Meanwhile, the protagonist walks alone through an alley on his way home, realizing that he is being followed. He stops, stares into the empty space, and orders them to come out, revealing that he had already known about the pursuit since leaving school. Chiang Sheng emerges from hiding wielding a sword and emanating a dense aura, declaring that he came to settle the score from the weekend. Yi glances over his shoulder, annoyed, and asks if Chiang Sheng really believes he can defeat him. The rival responds with a shout, activates Accelerate, and charges, saying he didn't train all this time in vain. He then uses Blink backwards and appears behind Yi, ready to deliver a fatal blow. Without turning, the protagonist materializes his weapon, and, with a simple arm movement, intercepts the strike and splits Chiang Sheng's sword in half. The opponent is stunned, unable to believe Yi's attack power is so superior to his own. Yi releases his energy, his empty and irritated gaze fixed on the adversary, and asks if Chiang Sheng really believes he's the only one who got stronger. He then moves his dagger with brutal speed, so fast the opponent cannot react, slamming him against the ground. Yi drives the blade into the ground beside the fallen body, making clear the difference between them. Chiang Sheng immediately realizes what he hadn't noticed before. Even though they are the same age, the young man before him is someone unreachable. After so many hours of training, Yi reached a growth level that seems divine, something immeasurable. Still confused and humiliated, Chiang Sheng asks if Yi also leveled up, what his current level is, and how it's possible to have gained so much power in so little time. He begins shouting that it's impossible because he himself trained beyond school, sacrificed himself, and reached level 4, and yet Yi is faster and stronger. Yi remains silent, stares at him seriously, and calmly pulls the dagger from the ground. He brings the blade close to Chiang Sheng's neck, murderous intent visible in his eyes, and asks sharply if he's ever died before. The rival, proud even in disadvantage, replies that Yi should stop with the act because he is clearly in his hands. He says he can kill him, torture him, do whatever he wants, since he always despised him. Yi agrees but emphasizes that contrary to what he thinks, he doesn't hate him that much. The answer shocks Chiang Sheng, who opens his eyes wide. Yi continues, saying that he noticed he was followed there, but that Chiang Sheng didn't set up an ambush or call for reinforcements. He came alone. Grabbing his enemy's neck, he states that this can only mean Chiang Sheng just wanted to test his strength against him. Chiang Sheng, filled with fury, retorts that it's no time for empty talk. Either Yi ends it right now, or on another day it will be him who falls. He stresses that he has no patience to hear phrases like, "I can see through you," and demands an immediate end. Yi averts his eyes and coldly declares that he takes back what he said about not hating him. Behind the trash bins, Specs and Chi Yin arrive and silently watch the scene. Chi Yin comments in surprise that it really was them, while Specs admits there's nothing they can do at that moment. Yi continues facing Chiang Sheng and reveals that, in fact, he was already expecting him, proposing an unexpected deal. He says he can teach him a method to become stronger quickly, but warns that, in return, he will need to offer something. The energy he releases and his piercing gaze frighten Chiang Sheng, even though his curiosity is evident. Friday, May 29th arrives, the day of the evaluation. All the students gather and the teacher announces the end of the training week, explaining that the combat simulation is about to begin. He emphasizes that despite the name, it is a real labyrinth, whose power has been partially sealed by a barrier, but which still contains living beasts. Therefore, each one must act within their own limits. To increase safety, exceptional high school students were assigned a guide and, if necessary, intervene. The teacher explains that teams will have 4 to 5 members, always with a leader who will command the others in a dungeon instance. They can choose between the F class or the E class. The E class dungeon, however, is extremely difficult, and without sufficient strength, it may result in failure and loss of credits. The time for selection arrives, and the teacher asks those who wish to enter the E class to raise their hands. Some students step forward, among them Chi Yin and Chang Sheng. Specs watches and comments to a colleague that they seem overconfident, hearing in response that if he weren't just a green class, he would also attempt the challenge. A few minutes later, the teacher ends the count and informs that out of 180 students, only 8 chose the E class. Chi Yin looks surprised at Yi, realizing that he didn't make the same choice. The teacher continues, saying that the others will be divided randomly to enter the F class. At that moment, Yi raises his hand and interrupts, asking him to wait. To everyone's astonishment, he announces that he wishes to challenge the Spirit Jade Labyrinth of the school itself. The impact of the revelation spreads immediately, leaving all the students stunned. Even the teacher cannot understand why Yi would do that, while the students remain shocked, murmuring among themselves, except for Hong Chiang Sheng, who stays silent, only watching. The teacher questions if it is some kind of joke, stating that there is no way he could jump straight to rank D. Principal Hong Liang intervenes, reminding them that a rank D demon cave is extremely dangerous and normally intended for high school students. Yi interrupts and asks if in the school manual there is any clear prohibition against entering a rank D or higher cave, stressing that the rules allow the student to choose their own level. He then stares directly at the principal and declares that the school's mission is to find talents for the Divine Core, and the standards of talent are courage, strength, responsibility, and gift. He asks directly if the principal intends to steal his chance to prove his worth. Hong Liang insists that the school-owned caves require team entry, but Yi stresses that he can go alone. The principal is firm and says that this is forbidden, as the rules exist to protect students. At that moment, Chi Yin raises her hand and announces that she also chooses to enter the rank D Demon Cave. The principal is startled and asks if she is insane, questioning how he would face her father if something happened. She, however, doesn't care, affirms that she also wants the highest score and only wishes to prove herself. Her eyes meet Yi's, and she winks to show support. Yi turns forward and, to everyone's surprise, refuses, saying he will clear the cave alone. Chi Yin is furious, walks up to him, and demands to know why he is rejecting her again. The teacher tries to calm her, explaining that his decision does not nullify her choice. The principal continues to reprimand them, calling the situation unbelievable, since they both only awakened last week and now act as if they were already too strong. The teacher analyzes for a moment and concludes that if they insist, then the cave will be challenged only by the two of them, as no one else should be willing to risk their lives. At that moment, another student raises his hand, saying he will also participate. A bit older, he smiles and comments that the flowers of the nation still need someone to protect them. The teacher relaxes when he sees him, stating that if Zieling is going, he can feel more at ease. Chi Yin recognizes him and asks if he is not the one who almost entered the school corps cultmate. Yi and Zieling lock eyes for a long time. The protagonist reflects that he had never heard of him in his past life, while Zieling smirks with disdain, thinking that Yi is just another reckless peacock, showing off in front of everyone without even measuring his own worth. The teacher leads the teams to the front of the portal, explaining that since they are already defined, the test will begin immediately. He emphasizes that there will be professional teams broadcasting everything live, and every action will be recorded. He asks everyone to give their best to achieve the highest score possible. Yi stares silently, focused only on his own determination. In his thoughts, he remembers that the Awakened Academy was built over an ancient conquered demon cave. Both the high school and the elementary divisions stand above it, and this great cave spawned several smaller ones around it, perfect for the tests. Most are controlled, ranging from F to D. Entering a dungeon marks the start of the simulated combat, but since everything is broadcast live, Yi knows he must be careful not to reveal all his trump cards in front of possible hidden enemies. As soon as he steps into the cave, he thinks that the Ling Yu demon guards exactly what he wants to find. Ziling starts boasting, assuring them they don't need to worry because he will protect them. He says he has already cleared a rank D open cave with others. Qi Yin, curious, asks how strong the monsters of that level are. Ziling responds that they usually range between E5 and D5, that is, from level 5 to 15, and adds that the most powerful beasts of the school's caves are sealed, making it unlikely for rank B monsters or a boss to appear. However, he warns not to underestimate high-level E creatures, as sometimes their speed and attack power are surprising. Ziling emphasizes that Qi Yin just awakened, and in front of monsters of that level is nothing more than a small fish. Still full of himself, he says he will try to find weaker creatures so she can accumulate some credit, guaranteeing she doesn't need to worry because he is a veteran and won't let a rookie like her get hurt. While he talks, Yi simply ignores him and moves ahead, catching Ziling's attention. The veteran scolds him, saying he shouldn't walk so fast as it may end up startling the monsters. Yi immediately replies that he talks too much, leaving Ziling even more irritated. At that moment, Yi releases part of his strength and with a fixed gaze turns back, staring coldly at the veteran. He orders him to just shut up and stay behind because he doesn't need anyone's help. Ziling's anger grows to the point of making him tremble, but even so, they keep advancing with Yi always at the front. Outside, the live broadcast of the simulated combat had already started, and everyone at the school was watching. Teachers, evaluators, and principals followed from the rooms. At the ultimate campus, the vice captain watches on his phone and calls the captain, saying it will be fun. One of the rookies chose a rank D dungeon. The captain, surprised and curious, asks what the rookie's class is. The vice captain laughs, stressing that the funniest thing is that he is just a green warrior, considered the most useless of all, and that's why he wants to see where so much confidence comes from. Meanwhile, in another cave, Specs screamed desperately for the monsters not to approach. A woman approached and said that he, being just an enchanter, should stay behind giving support to his allies instead of being so nervous. But monsters began surrounding them. F-class bats, a violent F-class cat, vicious fangs, and even an E-class Estafurgan. Specs remained terrified, questioning why even an F-class dungeon could be so frightening. In another E-class instance, a group badly wounded tried to recover after facing a horde. A healer did his best to save the team, while Hong Qiangsheng advanced irritated at seeing new enemies approaching. Arrogantly, he shouted that if no one could handle them, he himself would take care of the situation. He charged at the monsters and eliminated them one by one, repeating to himself that he will be able to surpass Yi. Inside the D-class cave, Yi advanced effortlessly, destroying monsters as if they were nothing. The system notified that he eliminated a G-class Rage Many and another of Class E, gaining 30 experience points. In minutes, several creatures were already lying on the ground. Ziling couldn't believe what he was seeing, while Qi Yin was completely enchanted, asking how he could do all that. Yi noticed other monsters approaching, began walking, and explained that all the creatures there are sealed and can only use half their strength, making them easy to deal with. Qi Yin even so was even more charmed, and commented that even with only half their strength, Yi still faces several at once, which makes it clear how far she is from him. Yi looked directly into her eyes and affirmed that there is no need to compare to others, stressing that she should just focus on being who she truly is. She smiled, held her book tightly, and asked if he always had to speak so coldly, but assured him she would do her best. Ziling watched the scene outraged, consumed with hatred at seeing Yi monopolize all the attention. He approached and insisted that this was a D-class dungeon, saying the protagonist shouldn't be so arrogant. He admitted that his performance was remarkable, but insisted that it was his first time in a labyrinth and that besides, it was a 3-chamber location, which requires caution. He said that as a veteran, he should give some advice. Yi, however, ignored him completely and pointed to the side, ordering Qi Yin to handle the monsters coming from that direction while he himself would advance from the other. Ziling stood there, dumbfounded, and soon monsters began approaching at high speed surrounding the three. Irritated, he felt his rage grow even more, repeating in his mind that Yi had despised him again. Yi kept talking only to his companion, explaining that the monsters coming from the right side were lower level and asking if she could handle them alone. Qi Yin hesitated, afraid to fight without support, while Ziling watched with disdain, thinking Yi showed no respect for veterans. The protagonist insisted, saying that this combat was an individual skill test and reminded her that she too was being evaluated, asking if she didn't want a good score. Those words struck deep within the girl, who got excited, shouted that she understood, and declared that she could handle it on her own. Thus, each went in a different direction. Ignored once again, Zilling released his power, furious, believing that Yi insisted on making things difficult on purpose. Outside, the live broadcast surprised everyone. The spectators commented in disbelief that the protagonist had defeated so many E-class monsters completely alone. Teachers and evaluators watched without understanding, and one of them asked what Yi's current level was. The monitor in charge replies that the report still shows him as Class E Level 1, but from what it looks like, he may already be E3 or even E4. He also adds that it is not just that. Yi assigned the monsters on the left to himself and sent Qi-yin to the right ones, explaining that this happened because he observed the elemental counter relationship, allowing the Flora element user to face the Astro element monsters. Even in an individual test, Yi made the most logical choice, demonstrating tactical awareness. The teacher remembers that shortly before, Yi had promised not to let him down and begins laughing, recognizing that the boy wasn't just bragging. Inside the cave, Yi reflects that the night before, he noticed that the Astro element beasts came from the right. They were low-level and vulnerable to the Flora element, which made combat easier for Qi-yin. The girl advances with confidence, but a larger monster appears before her. Frightened, yet without losing control, she summons Vine Wall. The creature struggles against the roots, but she persists and firmly restrains the enemy, applying poison until she defeats a level 6 Class E star insect, receiving 30 experience points. Radiant, she shouts to Yi, proud, saying she succeeded once again. Yi watches her and thinks that, upon reaching Class E, every mage acquires a unique basic ability. In her case, it is Vine Wall, vines that rise quickly to form a barrier, whose thorns have a poisonous effect. The protagonist concludes that even though it is her first time in a dungeon, Qi-yin can face higher-level monsters alone, using the wall to trap them and reduce the combat area. He acknowledges that this clearly demonstrates the girl's talent. Yi approaches the cave where the monsters were coming from and concludes that the Class D ones are still sealed, and that Qi-yin can handle the rest alone. In his thoughts, he admits that at this pace, he can hide part of his true strength, even under the eyes of the broadcasters, and still obtain a good score. However, he also considers that he may have already drawn too much attention, and will need to plan his next steps carefully. Zilling, consumed by rage, insists that Yi is far too arrogant for completely ignoring him, even though he is the veteran. He then decides to act on his own. He raises his bow, aims in Qi-yin's direction, and fires the light arrow skill, saying that now they will have to deal with that. The arrow flashes past the girl and strikes deep inside the cave. Qi-yin turns, confused, not understanding the reason for that action, and Zilling tries to deceive her, claiming he just wanted to give a buff, asking why she would think otherwise. But soon, a roar echoes from the darkness and a monstrous shadow emerges. An immense two-headed lion charges quickly toward Qi-yin's back. The creature is a two-headed Karina, level 11, Class D. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. Thank you.